Hello everyone, my name is Krishna Mandal, and it's time to talk about chords. As of right now, chords are probably the most important thing I think about when writing a song. In fact, all of my pieces have begun with me just sitting at the piano, playing around, until I hit something that makes me feel a certain way. There's a lot to cover when it comes to chords, so let's just get right into it. A chord is just 3 or more notes stacked on top of each other. For this video, we'll pretty much just focus on 3-note chords, or triads. As we've said in previous videos, thirds are the backbone of Western harmony. So, you'll find that most chords are built out of them. This means that whenever we see a chord, we try to analyze it in terms of thirds. In a practical sense, there's 2 kinds of thirds: the major third and the minor third. For 3-note chords, you need 2 thirds. 2 thirds with 2 possible qualities gives us 4 possible combinations. Let's see what each one is. A major third on bottom and a minor third on top gives you a major triad. A minor triad on bottom and a major triad on top gives you a minor triad. A minor triad on bottom and a minor triad on top gives you a diminished triad. And a major third on bottom and a major third on top gives you an augmented triad. Another important thing about chords is inversions. Inversions are where you take a note in the chord other than the root and make that the root. The root is usually the most important because it can tell us which notes to look at to identify the chord. For 3-note chords, there are 3 types of inversions. We'll go through a major chords inversions and a minor chords inversions. This is C major in root position. First inversion and second inversion. This is A minor in root position. First inversion and second inversion. Notice how each chord and its respective inversions sound the same, but feel different. The note that is on bottom has a significant impact on the way the entire chord feels. Now that we've covered some basic chord types, let's talk about functional harmony. Functional harmony is the idea that each chord has a type, and each type has a function. There are 3 types, which are tonic, subdominant, and dominant. Tonic chords serve as our home. They are at rest and very comfortable. Subdominant chords take us outside of our home. They create a bit of motion and can either be stable or unstable. Dominant chords point us very clearly back home. They're typically dissonant and create a good amount of instability in order to land on the tonic with power. This cycle of tonic, subdominant, and dominant is the basic idea of functional harmony. In order to see it in action, let's build up our arsenal of chords. Let's pick a note, say C in this case. If we build a major scale off of it and take scale degree 1, 3, and 5, we will see that they make a C major triad. This is because the 1 and the 3 make a major third, and the 3 and the 5 make a minor third. This is called the tonic chord because it perfectly establishes the home key of C major. The tonic chord obviously has tonic function. A C major triad is the 1 chord in the C major scale. Now let's see what happens if we go up a step. If we start at D but continue the major scale pattern established at C, we will get what is called the Dorian mode. Modes are all scales that are built off of a parent scale. They just start at different points in that parent scale. But having that different starting position gives the scale an entirely different feel. I don't really plan on talking about modes in depth, but if you would like me to go over them, just let me know in the future. Okay, so starting on D, If we take scale degrees 1, 3, and 5 of this scale, the Dorian scale, we will get a D minor triad. This is once again because the 1 and the 3 make a minor third, and the 3 and the 5 make a major third. This chord is called the supertonic, but it actually has subdominant function. The D minor triad is the 2 chord in a C major scale. Note the feeling it creates in relation to the tonic chord, and internalize it as a subdominant sound. We're going to go through the whole scale and categorize each chord by function. By the way, all these chords are called diatonic chords because they are made strictly from the notes in a C major scale. Starting on E and continuing the major scale pattern gives us the Phrygian scale. 1, 3, and 5 gives us an E minor triad. This chord is called the mediant, or the 3rd chord of C major. Listen to how, in context, the E minor sounds like an extension of a C major triad. This is why it has tonic function. Moving on to the next step. The scale we get by starting on F is called the Lydian scale. It's the brightest major scale mode. The chord we get is an F major triad, which is the subdominant chord in C major. This obviously means that it has subdominant function. Listen to the feeling of motion that it creates. Okay, as for the 5th, by starting on G, we get the Mixolydian scale. This gives us a G major chord, which is the dominant chord in C major. Once again, the dominant chord obviously has dominant function. Note the gravity that is felt when we are left on G. G creates this feeling of instability that makes us want to pull down to C major, which is at rest. Alright, next chord. The A gives us an Aeolian scale, which is the same thing as a natural minor scale. Because of this, we get an A minor triad, which is the submediant of C major. Note the similarity in sound between this chord and the tonic. This is what gives the A minor chord tonic function. Alright, last chord of the major scale. Building that C major scale off of a B gives us the most dark and dissonant mode of a major scale, the Locrian mode. It gives us a B diminished chord because the 2/3 are both minor thirds. This chord is called the leading tone chord because of how the 7th note of a major scale has a tendency to want to pull up to the tonic. Due to the dissonance, the chord has dominant function. Now that we have some chords for each type, let's get a real sense of how each type functions. We'll begin with the tonic chords. These chords all have a restful sound. They're just painted in different lights. The 1 chord is a solid, bright sound that establishes the home key. The 3 chord is kind of like the sad minor reflection of the 1 chord, or maybe its shadow. And the 6th chord outlines the relative minor scale, relative meaning that it shares the same key signature as the C major scale. The 6th chord is sort of like the solemn alternative to the 1 chord, but it too can have just as much gravity. When moving to the next chord type, it's important to think of how you can make the smoothest transition possible. A large part of what makes transitions between chords smooth is the distance by which the roots leap. Generally, chords sound smooth if they move by seconds, fourths, or fifths. Another crucial factor is called voice leading. I might make an entirely separate video about just that, but know for now that it means that every note in a chord has a nearby note in the next chord to go to. Let's see how this applies to subdominant chords. In every possible combination of tonic to subdominant chords, you will see that the root moves by seconds, fourths, and fifths. When the roots move by larger intervals, such as fourths and fifths, it's a good idea to use voice leading to bridge the gaps between the chords. This can be done by using inversions, but we haven't even gotten to the dominant chords yet. The dominant chords are the 5 and the 7, but they're usually put together to create what is called the dominant 7th chord. The reason why the dominant 7th chord has the amount of gravity that it does is because of the 3 and the 7. If you look at a C major chord, you'll see that the 3rd and the 7th of the G7 chord are as close as they can possibly be to the defining notes of C major. This feeling of being just barely out of reach is what we mean by dissonance. When this dissonance resolves, when the dominant chord goes up to the tonic, we get a feeling of release. This movement from 5 to 1 is the most classic form of tension and release. and it's crucial that you understand how it works. Keeping the sound of C major in mind, let's listen to each combination of tonic to subdominant chords. First, I'll do an example that's just in root position, and after, I'll do an example that uses inversions to create better voice leading. These cycles of tonic to subdominant to dominant chords are called chord progressions. However, there's a lot more chord progressions that fall outside of this cycle. As a matter of fact, there's a lot more chords to explore in general. So, we're gonna have to save this for the next video. In the meantime, play around with the different versions of tonic, subdominant, and dominant chords. Find ones that feel right to you, and find ways to make the voice leading or the transition between each chord as smooth and as appealing as possible. Also, you guys should get the free version of Sibelius and MuseScore if you can. It's so helpful because even if it's just a MIDI playback, you can physically hear what you're doing and then make adjustments as needed. I'd love to see what you guys are doing, and I would totally be open to discussion. But with that said, I'm Krishna Mandal, and thank you for watching.